He came up to me with a lead sheet. I always should carry a copy of that with me whenever I do an interview.
What if the voice that brought comfort to millions was hiding a silent struggle of its own? Karen Carpenter's angelic vocals and timeless hits made her a household name, but behind the scenes, she was battling something far more devastating than anyone realized. How did one of the most beloved singers of her time endure so much pain while the world only saw her smile? The truth behind her rise and tragic fall is even more heartbreaking than you might think. Karen Carpenter was born on March 2nd, 1950 in New Haven, Connecticut, but it wasn't long before her family relocated to Downey, California. Unlike most singers, Karen didn't start with a passion for vocals. Her first love was the drums. She excelled at them, proving that she wasn't just another aspiring musician, but a true talent with rhythm in her soul. Everything changed when she and her older brother Richard formed the Carpenters in the late 1960s. Richard was the mastermind behind their arrangements, but it was Karen's warm, velvety voice that made the duo unforgettable.
The song is as it was written, no introduction, no arrangement.
Their big break came in 1969 when they signed with A&M Records, and by 1970 they skyrocketed to fame with their first major hit, They Long to Be Close to You. The song was a massive success, followed by an unstoppable string of hits like We've Only Just Begun, Rainy Days and Mondays, and Top of the World. With their signature soft pop sound, the Carpenters dominated the charts throughout the 70s, selling millions of records and winning multiple Grammy Awards. Karen became one of the most recognized and beloved voices of the decade. But while the world saw a picture-perfect success story, behind the scenes, a much darker reality was unfolding. Behind the spotlight, Karen Carpenter was fighting a battle that few understood at the time. Anorexia nervosa. In an industry obsessed with image, Karen faced constant pressure to maintain a certain look, and the scrutiny over her appearance took a devastating toll. It started subtly. An offhand comment here, a magazine critique there, but soon, Karen became fixated on her weight. The music industry was ruthless, and even as she delivered flawless performances, she was battling intense insecurity behind the scenes. She began extreme dieting, often going days without eating properly, and resorted to dangerous methods to stay thin. As the Carpenters' fame grew, so did the expectations. Karen was always in the public eye, and the pressure to look perfect only intensified. Her once-room energetic presence faded. Fans and colleagues noticed she was shrinking before their eyes, but in an era where eating disorders were poorly understood, few knew how to help. Despite her undeniable talent, Karen felt like she was losing control of her image, her health, and ultimately, her happiness. As the years went on, the consequences of her struggle would become impossible to ignore. Karen Carpenter's struggles weren't just limited to the pressures of fame. Her family dynamics played a significant role in her emotional turmoil. Her mother, Agnes Carpenter, was known for being strict, controlling, and emotionally distant, especially toward Karen. Many close to the family claimed that Agnes favored Richard, seeing him as the true musical genius, while Karen was often left craving her mother's approval. Despite her worldwide success, Karen never felt truly validated in her mother's eyes, which only deepened her insecurities. In 1980, Karen hoped to find happiness outside of music when she married Tom Burris, a real estate developer. At first, it seemed like a fairy tale romance, but it quickly turned into a nightmare. Burris allegedly misled Karen about his finances, was controlling, and even made cruel remarks about her weight, worsening her already fragile self-esteem. The marriage fell apart in less than a year, leaving Karen heartbroken and emotionally drained. Between the emotional distance from her family and the collapse of her marriage, Karen felt increasingly alone even as the world adored her. She had given everything to her music, yet behind the scenes she was struggling to hold herself together. By the late 1970s, Karen Carpenter was ready to step out of her brother's shadow and establish herself as a solo artist. She longed to explore a different sound, something more contemporary and reflective of her personal style. In 1979, she teamed up with legendary producer Phil Ramone in New York to record her first solo album. The project was a drastic departure from the Carpenters' signature soft pop sound. Karen embraced a more adult, contemporary, and disco-inspired vibe, working with top-tier session musicians. The album was a passion project, showcasing a new side of Karen, confident, independent, and eager to grow artistically, but when she presented the finished album to A&M Records and her family, she was met with rejection. Richard and her mother hated it, believing it didn't align with the Carpenters' image. The label was hesitant, fearing it would alienate their core audience. Under intense pressure, Karen shelved the album, and it was never officially released during her lifetime. The rejection was devastating. She had put her heart into the project, only to have it dismissed by the very people whose approval she craved the most. It was yet another blow to her self-worth, reinforcing the painful idea that she wasn't enough. Not as an artist, not as a daughter, not even as her own person. By the early 1980s, Karen Carpenter's health was in serious decline. Years of extreme dieting and battle with anorexia nervosa had taken a devastating toll on her body. She had become dangerously underweight, and despite attempts to hide her frailty behind glamorous outfits and stage presence, those close to her could see she was struggling. In 1981, she finally sought treatment, checking into a hospital in New York for intravenous nutrition therapy. She gained some weight back, but the damage had already been done. Years of malnutrition had severely weakened her heart, though neither Karen nor her doctors fully realized the extent of the harm. Determined to recover, Karen returned home to California in late 1982, hopeful for a fresh start. She even finalized her divorce from Tom Barris, hoping to leave behind the pain of her failed marriage. But despite her efforts, her body couldn't keep up with her will to fight. On February 4th, 1983, Karen Carpenter collapsed in her parents' home in Downey, California. She was just 32 years old. The official cause of death was heart failure brought on by complications of anorexia, a disorder that at the time was still widely misunderstood. Her passing shocked the world, drawing attention to the dangers of eating disorders in a way that had never been seen before. Karen had spent her life giving joy to millions with her music, but in the end she had fought her greatest battles alone. Karen Carpenter's impact on music and culture didn't end with her tragic passing. If anything, her legacy only grew stronger. Her rich, emotive voice continues to inspire generations of artists, including Adele, Madonna, and Sheryl Crow, all of whom have cited her as an influence. Even decades after her death, the Carpenters' songs remain timeless, their melodies evoking both warmth and nostalgia. But beyond her music, Karen's passing sparked a global conversation about eating disorders, a topic that had long been ignored or misunderstood. Her death brought anorexia into the public eye, forcing the medical community and the entertainment industry to confront the dangers of extreme dieting and body image pressures. In the years following, new treatment programs and awareness campaigns emerged, helping to educate people about the seriousness of eating disorders. Karen's story became a cautionary tale, but also a catalyst for change, ensuring that those struggling in silence had a better chance at getting help. Today, Karen Carpenter is remembered not just for the tragedy of her life, but for the beauty of her voice, the depth of her artistry, and the awareness she helped bring to an issue that affects millions. Karen Carpenter's life was a heartbreaking contrast. A voice that brought so much warmth and joy to the world, yet a soul weighed down by silent struggles. To the public, she was a picture of success, a Grammy-winning artist, a chart-topping sensation, and one of the most beloved voices in music history. But behind the spotlight, she was battling a disorder that few understood, trapped by the pressures of perfection and the need for approval. Her story is a reminder that fame and fortune don't guarantee happiness, and that even those who seem to have it all can be fighting battles no one sees. Karen's tragic passing opened the world's eyes to the dangers of eating disorders, sparking conversations that have saved countless lives. But above all, her legacy lives on, in every song, in every note, in every artist inspired by her extraordinary talent.